Good morning, everyone. This baby's feeding himself the rest of my oatmeal. Look at you, got oatmeal on your forehead. But I was just checking my comments and noticed someone left a comment that I wanted to answer a couple of questions that they left on there. I think her name is... What's your name again? I'm trying to remember all of this by head because I don't have it in front of me. You know what? Let me just go open it. Let's see here. Knowledge of all truth. That's who left the comment. And she's saying, I'm thinking about going vegan because of fibroids and pain caused by them. Question. Do you eat oatmeal on a plant-based diet, and how much fruit do you consume? I only ask because it contains sugar. I absolutely love oatmeal, but I didn't think I could eat it to shrink fibroids. Okay. So there's a few questions in there, and first of all, thank you, Knowledge of Truth, for leaving that comment. Those are like really brilliant questions, actually, because I remember going through the same questions when I was suffering with fibroids, when I had like extreme pain. I don't know if you've seen my earlier videos, but I was in the hospital pretty much every week or every other week. I'm pretty sure every weekend. It got to that point where every weekend I was in the hospital. But that was just before, way before I discovered a lot of the things that I know now that have helped me. I'm pain-free currently. Haven't had any fibroid pains. Haven't had to go to the hospital due to my fibroid pains. And as you probably heard in the previous videos that I did, they are shrinking. So first off, for me to answer all the questions, I'll start by answering the, I guess the sugar part. The sugar I find is the biggest concern because when my fibroids were the worst, I was avoiding all sugars. I was avoiding, well, to the best of my ability, because I'm someone who loves sugar. I've always been a sugar addict, even before I was vegan. I love my cookies, you know, pastries, stuff like that, cake. Oh my gosh. Ice cream, you name it. I love my sugars. I always have since I was a little kid. But you have to keep in mind there's two kinds of sugars. There's refined sugars, unrefined sugars. And because of our Western diet these days, our standard American diet, a lot of the stuff that's surrounding us has a lot of added processed sugars in them. But that's not the worst part of our diet. The worst part of our diets is the meat, the amount of meat and dairy that we consume. Because side by side, if you really weigh them, even though sugar causes some level of inflammation, to be honest with you, meat and dairy cause the highest level of inflammation all around. Give me 1 second here. The highest level of inflammation. So if you keep that in mind, if you're on a meat and dairy diet, or a diet that consists of meat and dairy, by the time you have your sugar intake, whether it be by fruit or processed sugars or whatever, you already have inflammation. So always keep in mind, as long as you are consuming meat and dairy, guaranteed, whether you have fibroids or not, you have some level of inflammation in your body. It's just the only difference is for people with fibroids, it's already manifested itself. So when I was pregnant again, like I mentioned, when I was in pain and out of the hospital, I was so big. My fibroids were so big that I could feel a noticeable difference every time I ate something. I could feel the swelling because, first of all, there was a baby in there, but there was like fibroids this big, like 3-4 of them, competing for room in there. So anything I ate that caused inflammation, you could even visibly see it. I remember my nurses even saying, "Oh my gosh, you're so swollen right now today," because my belly would swell up even more and the skin around my belly would be so tight because there was just more swelling than there was room. I'm not that big. I'm not a big person. I'm a small woman. I'm like 5'5", 120 something pounds right now. So I was maybe at 130, 135 then. So it's not a whole lot of room there. And one of the things, I guess, that turned out to be a blessing in disguise, that I could feel the effects of what I'm eating, which confirmed a lot of the research I was doing on what foods cause inflammation. And the worst swelling by far was caused when I ate dairy-based foods and meats. And not to say that sugar doesn't cause inflammation, but it's just the degree of inflammation that it causes cannot be compared to the degree that meat and dairy food causes in your body. Because a high meat and dairy food diet causes things like high cholesterol, clogging up arteries, and so forth. But I'll get into that later. The misconception with sugar, however, is, first of all, because there's too much refined sugars in our foods that are being imposed in our foods, mostly processed foods. So key here is to stay away from processed foods altogether to begin with. But if you can, go vegan and get away from those meats. There's no one meat I can tell you is better than the other. Some people try to do that whole thing like, oh, chicken is better than the beef or lean beef is better than chicken, or salmon is better. Meat is meat. It all has high acidity and it makes your body super acidic, which makes your body produce inflammation in order to combat that acidity. So it doesn't matter what kind of meat you're eating, it doesn't matter what kind of dairy you're eating, it's all high in acidity, and eventually it has the same effect on your body. Back to the misconception of sugars. Yes, there are processed sugars, but then also the fruits and vegetables, because I'm hearing a lot of people saying they don't want to eat fruits and vegetables anymore, especially fruits. They want to limit the amount of fruits, or they don't want to eat bananas, or fruits like that, like mangoes with high sugar content in them, because they're bad for you. There are no fruits that are bad for you unless they're just toxic to the human body or poisonous. There are no fruits that are bad for you. Keep that in mind. The reason we know there's a grave misconception is because when you look at people that have type 2 diabetes, they get off sugars because their body no longer produces the insulin for them to process those sugars. So the first thing their doctors tell them is get off sugar, stop eating fruits and vegetables. They live their entire lifetime, the rest of their life, not consuming sugars or taking insulin replacements and pills and all that stuff. They never get cured. They never get better. It's just a matter of managing the disease because they're not getting down to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem here isn't the sugar. The root of the problem is what made your body incapable of processing something as simple as a sugar. How is that possible when the human body is designed with an organ that naturally produces insulin? It's because of the same reason that when you're on a meat-based diet, you can get high cholesterol, high blood pressure. Leo, please. Thank you. And basically what happens when you're in a meat-based diet is because of the high cholesterol, the kind of bad cholesterol that accumulates in your body and clogs certain arteries and certain functions of the body. It makes you unable to do certain things. It makes your body unable to produce that insulin that you need to process the sugar. So that's what's really going on if you really want to look at the root cause. If you just want to manage your illness, then fine, go ahead, get your pills or whatever, keep eating what you're eating. But you can see a stark difference between people with type 2 diabetes who switch to a plant-based diet, who after just a few weeks start getting noticeable difference. They actually start producing that insulin, and after a few months, some of them even get cured and don't have to take their pills anymore, their medications, because they are actually cured. Because the root problem, the very thing that was stopping their bodies from producing that insulin in order to process the sugars, has been corrected. by being on a plant-based diet, by being on a diet that doesn't disable your body to that point. So if you want to read, there's some very good books. The China Study is a good one that talks about that, and How Not to Die is another good one. You want to look those up and read those. They have a lot of supporting data, a lot of massive research and supporting data, if you're that kind of person that's into that. But if you want to just take it from me, from my experience, since I went vegan, I have been eating oatmeal, yes, and clearly my fibers have been shrinking, and no, I haven't had any inflammation in my body, because when I went vegan, a lot of excess unnecessary weight that I had, I'm a person that, even though I'm small in stature, I always had weight problems growing up, and I never understood why, because I didn't overeat. I ate what I thought was a balanced diet, but throughout my teenage, puberty, I always felt that I was overweight, and I was on yo-yo diets, and those starve yourself diets and those keto diets, and the weight always came back on. And now that I've been vegan for a year and something, my weight dropped, and now I'm struggling to gain weight. At this point, I've kind of given up. I'm like, you know what? According to my BMI and everything, I'm at my ideal weight now. It just feels different because I've always been bigger, right? And it's for the first time in my life, I'm actually small. This is crazy. But also because I'm breastfeeding and stuff, so that's gonna add to it. But when I got my blood work done and everything, my blood work is immaculate. It's amazing. The only thing that was missing was the iron. I was iron deficient. That was the only thing. But I was iron deficient even while I was pregnant, before I went vegan, when I was eating all kinds of meat. I was even eating organ meat and whatever, because I thought that will help. I was still iron deficient, and I actually ended up getting an iron infusion just before I gave birth. So obviously eating meat did not help with the iron thing. My sister was also iron deficient, and she wasn't vegan at all when she was iron deficient. So from what I've been told, it runs in our family. Like when we're breastfeeding or pregnant, we tend to get iron deficient. I'm not as iron deficient now as I was though when I was pregnant, eating meat and all that stuff, just because the vegan diet itself is quite high in iron, as long as you're doing it right, as long as you're eating the foods that contain iron. If you're gonna go vegan and eat, let's say, potato chips and pop every day, sure, you're vegan. It's plant-based. It really is, right? But it doesn't have all the nutrients and, the vitamins and the minerals that you need, right? So if you're gonna avoid things like leafy green vegetables, which I am guilty of doing, I'm not gonna lie, I have done that, where I've just been too lazy to wash some spinach or kale and, make a salad or make a smoothie. So I ended up just eating every other plant, like my legumes, or at some point I used to just make a peanut butter sandwich because I couldn't be bothered. Like, that's not a healthy vegan diet. So if you're a vegan, if you do decide to go vegan, make sure you maintain a healthy diet. And in order to maintain a healthy diet, you gotta eat your fruits and your vegetables and your grains and all that stuff. How much fruit do I consume? In my oatmeal, I eat oatmeal religiously every single day since I've been vegan, and my fibers have been shrinking. In my oatmeal, I put half a cup of blueberries, a whole entire green apple, doesn't matter if it's green or red, as long as it's an apple. I just happen to like green more. And a whole banana. When I say a whole banana, I mean the largest bananas you can find. So I eat at least 2-3 fruits a day just in my oatmeal. That's not even counting all the other fruits I eat during lunch. Lunchtime, I might eat a whole orange. Yesterday, between the last couple of days, we got a whole watermelon. The first day it was like that big. The first day we ate the entire half of the watermelon within one day. Pretty sure within one sitting. And yesterday I ate the other half of the watermelon, and that's a lot of sugar, but I still don't have inflammation. And the reason for that is I'm not eating any meat and I'm not eating any dairy. So the highest causing things of inflammation are not triggering that sugar to add to the inflammation that already exists to feed. Because what happens with sugar is that on its own, it doesn't cause inflammation. But when you're eating meat and dairy, it feeds the existing inflammation. That's the difference. That's what I was trying to say. So for me, now that I don't have that meat and dairy in my diet, when I eat the sugar, my body literally just processes it all. It's gone. Like it just gets used up. I find my metabolism is a lot faster, and it just literally just consumes anything that I eat. And which means I'm constantly eating all the time. And most of my foods that I do eat, grains and stuff like that, they have sugars in them. Rice, quinoa. You can't avoid sugars, especially if you're gonna go on a plant-based or vegan diet. You're gonna have a high sugar, high carb diet when you're on a vegan diet, because that's just what a plant-based diet consists of. The thing to bear in mind is not to be scared because of the misconception. When you're in a meat-based diet, I see a lot of people on meat-based diet are afraid of carbs, they're afraid of sugar. They don't realize that the carbs and sugar are not what's causing their underlying problem of overweightness or diabetes or heart disease or any of those ailments. He's vacuuming.
Hi, say hi. Say hi, I'm a cute baby and I'm gonna vacuum the floor. I'm a cute baby, I'm gonna vacuum the floor.
I absolutely love oatmeal, but I didn't think I could eat it. I love oatmeal. That's one thing I can't stop eating. I have to have my oatmeal every single morning or I just don't feel right. I don't have a good start to a day unless I eat that oatmeal. And yeah, do your research again also and find out, like, but from my personal experience, I can tell you for sure, and from research that I've done, I can tell you for sure that sugar is really not your main concern. It's the meats and the dairy. The sugar, yes, can be a concern when you're already on meats and dairy, and now the sugar starts to fuel all of the abnormalities and the inflammation and stuff that are already going on, that are underlined because of what the meats and stuff that you're putting in your body. So I hope that helps. This video is getting longer than I thought, and I feel like I'm repeating a lot of things. So I'm gonna cut it short now because I want to take, I want to take him to playgroup so he can get some playing in. I don't think he's exerting enough energy in this house. It's just too small of a house. So I need him to play, get him tired so he can take an afternoon nap. So cheers. And if I didn't answer any questions, again, please feel free to leave a comment and let me know. And I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my abilities. Thank you again for leaving a comment, and thank you for viewing the videos. If you like the content, please like it, subscribe, and see you guys later. Ciao. You gonna say bye?
Bye, say bye.
Bye. Yeah. This is our lakefront. There's like a plaything over there, and this is the splash pad that we came to hang around last year. I just want to take them for a walk. Look at this one. So they can get some fresh air, because they've been cooked up in the house and they just act a fool. Where's the baby? Yuki's a baby. It's a baby walking around. Run, 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 run. Run, 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 run.